You can share just only the application PowerPoint.
Yes. Okay. Really sorry. Is that okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So it's environmental because it makes it possible to denounce noise pollution, symptomatic of a more general pollution responsible for the destruction of our planet. When we enjoy the sounds of nature, we dream of clairaudience, to use Murray Schafer's term. However, it's almost impossible today to listen to a bird sing or a drop of water fall without the sound being parasitized by a multitude of other surrounding sounds, as shown by Gordon Hampton, who travels the world in order to find a rise of 1 square centimeter without anthropophonic sounds. Anthropophonic sounds are defined by Bernie Krause as those produced by the human species, as opposed to biophonic and geophonic sounds. The deep ecology, defined by Arne Naas, questions the notion of silence, which seized the sound artists of the 50s and 70s, such as John Cage, Yoko Ono, and Max Neuhaus. From this genealogy, my artistic and theoretical work is oriented towards the question of listening. It is ethical because our way of listening to the world corresponds to our way of being in the world, according to the philosopher Carmen Pardo. The work of educating the ears allows a certain ethical refinement, listening to the world and living together. It is this aspect, seen from a sociological angle, that I will develop today. My artistic work is conceived as a methodological tool which could answer the question, can the art of listening have an impact, individual, political, or social, on the environment? It is, as Gosselin defines it, to take advantage of my immersion in a practice to theorize a subject that works my practice. So, from my specific point of view, I draw a more general theoretical framework. My creation, as well as my thesis plan, take shape in 3 acts. Act 1, a collaborative sound library of field recordings of sounds that are interpreted as pollutants. Act 2, Soundwalks to raise awareness and discuss in urban areas. And Act 3, a specialized sound installation, a dystopian soundscape composed from field recordings from the sound library and specialized according to the cartography. If sociological reflection is present in the 3 acts, linked to web art in Act 1 and relational art in Act 3, I now insist on Act 2 and its Soundwalks for focus on the social issue. This commitment is linked to a certain activism. For Andrea Poli, I quote, "The act of listening through public soundwalks and other formal and informal exercises builds environmental and social awareness and promotes changes in social and cultural practices." End of quote. This activism is inspired by Joseph Beuys, who, with the term social sculpture, defines art as a process of thought, speech, discussion, and political and environmental action. A social and environmental activism that is revealed in human and social relationships, fostered by interactions related to walking and listening during walks. It is an intense moment of socio-reality, to use the expression of Gilles Malatray, who engages participants with their environment. A local consciousness then develops and creates empathy and communion with the inhabitants of the sound sphere. Murray Schafer was the first to reverse the listener's posture, as Milena Drumeva pointed out. I quote, Schafer's turn from an anti-noise stance to a listener-centered approach based on the soundscape concept was the critical shift that allowed a subjective, cognitive, and culturally based model to be formulated that described the soundscape as a system of auditory relationships. End of quote. Enlarging the scope of the model from the individual listener to larger social structures resulted in the concept of the acoustic community. If the soundscape is a system of relationships, walking promotes awareness of belonging to this acoustic community. Indeed, during Soundwalks, the whole body is stimulated, and for Elena Pisana, whom I quote, it establishes an embodied and situated exchange with the environment while providing an opportunity to participate in the public sphere and to encounter otherness. Walking from these perspectives becomes a critical tool to perceive, explore, and experience the urban in its physical but also social aspects. The walking body always establishes a plurality of auditory relationships in a soundscape where the city's material, cultural, social, and political dynamics are audible and always open to multiple individual and collective negotiations and interactions. These collective interactions in the sound sphere result from the complexity of the natural and cultural environment. Finally, Andrea Poli seeks to make sense of the activity of listening to a soundscape. I quote, if it would be possible to assign meaning to listening to a soundscape, it would be closer to celebrating human connection and subordination to the complexity of the environment. Listening to a soundscape while walking is an activity designed specifically to connect human ears with the environment. It's a way of engaging participants collectively with the world. If, for Joseph Beuys, social art means cultivating relationships between humans, almost an act of life, then the Soundwalk is well situated in an artistic, social, musical, and biological act. We quickly saw how the Soundwalk through the body develops listening to the environment, listening to the other. However, the three acts of creation that I am developing as a research methodology, website, Soundwalks, and sound installation participate in a heterogeneous way in the constitution of an acoustic community which becomes aware of environmental pollution through noise pollution. The members of this acoustic community refine, through the exercise of listening, the awareness of their auditory habituation and realize that the urban soundscape, when viewed as polyphonic and polyrhythmic music, offers the possibility of open your ears wide to otherness. It is an act of life. Finally, As in a sound appendix, I will let you listen to a small 60 seconds composed soundscape titled Engulfed Voices. It shows how human voices in public space are overwhelmed by noise pollution. Okay, after this abrupt silence, thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Can you please stop sharing? Yeah. Thank you so much, Caroline, for your presentation. Let's see if there are some questions from the room or from YouTube. Or I have a couple of. I have one consideration, but I might be wrong. I'm not an expert of this field, so I must confess I will ask you a clarification. So maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that there are two positions. If I remember well, Schaffer intended the sound pollution as a, let's say, a problem, in a sense that noise disrupt a bit our relation with the environment. And on the other hand, I'm thinking about Emily Thompson, I guess, states, on the other hand, that noise is part of our soundscape, and in a way should be considered itself a soundscape. So I want a clarification, if you can, to understand if pollution is something that is, of course, is integrated with soundscape, but also if it is something that totally negative or that could be understood as the soundscape itself that around us, stay around us. So it's, I don't know if the question is clear for you.
I think it's clear, but I'm not sure to answer correctly. So Murray Schafer had different positions. He turns his point of view. So I think the noise pollution is not a problem for the soundscape. He wants to denounce, and so I think today we can consider the urban soundscape as a very important question.
Yeah, I understand.
So I'm sorry, I have a very poor English.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's just I wonder this different perspective on the pollution, in a sense that you mean our practice could help to have a more, let's say, a better relation with this pollution in a way, or is something that we should go against this?
Yes, I have when I speak with the people who walks during Soundwalks, then I speak with them and I ask some questions, and I discovered that they discovered justly sounds that they never had heard, and it questions and I don't know how to say that better.
It's interesting because the feedback of people that make these practices are really important. I have to make just a small interruption to our discussion because of a technical problem, but I'm sorry. That we can continue a bit later, but we have a problem in Zoom session. I have to log out the lobby. Okay, but I can ask to all the participants to come again. So I'm sorry for this. Then we could continue, but I have to log out the Zoom session because of we have a technical problem, and log in again. So I ask you all to log in again after. Okay, so I'm sorry for this. Can you do this?
Okay.
Thank you.
Já dá para pegar nisso? Sim, sim. E havia uma pergunta do YouTube.
Sim, eu vi. Okay, let me check if there is old people. Yeah, can you hear me again?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for this. We had a problem in the Zoom session. Let's continue Caroline discussion, and then we pass further because we have some questions from YouTube also, and one question from the room. So Caroline, are you still there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Okay, let's start with the questions from the room.
Hello, I was just continuing what we were talking about, the divide between an idealized soundscape, which has been still going on in the acoustic ecology school of, we want to hear the birds and the nature. And so this kind of separation between nature and anthropophonic sounds that still exists. Don't you think that focusing on pollution might reinforce the idea of the divide between anthropophonic or pseudo-natural sounds, or maybe good sounds and bad sounds? Do you think it's a strategy that can fight this divide or can reinforce it?
So it's perhaps a little schizophrenic. Before I used to denoise my sounds of nature, and the sound, the noise pollution was considered as déchet, garbage, and how to say that? I think we can appreciate some noise pollution too. It is the problem for this schizophrenic work.
Yeah, I guess so. And also a big discussion on this topic. So in case we can continue by mail or in some ways to have an exchange. Yes, so we are getting late for this technical problem, and also there was a comment in YouTube, but then we restart the section, so we lost the comments, but we will go back for this. In case everyone can contact Caroline by mail, so in case we want to go further in this discussion, we can do this by mail.